Hey guys, so I'm back and we're gonna do another Tetris tutorial. So we're gonna take a break from the Mario for probably just this week, okay? And what we're gonna do is I had a subscriber request a tutorial for Tetris to implement high scores and to save those and to basically just overwrite them as they get, whoever gets a higher score, that score is then going to be displayed in the high scores list. And maybe we'll do more than one. So maybe we'll do like high score, first place, second place, third place. Yeah, we'll do that. And okay, yeah, so that's what we'll do. And something else that you guys may have noticed is I now have an HD camera. So you can see all the wrinkles. It's bad. Anyways, so now what I'm going to do is, unless you guys just don't want to see my face, I'm going to have my face in a little tiny spot on my videos. So wherever that's going to be, like over here, my camera is, yeah, it's reversed. So this is either I'm going to have to figure out how to reverse it or how to get used to saying that this is my right hand. I don't know. Okay, anyway, so here's what we'll do is we're going to turn on, actually I'll stop this video and come back, and we're going to have the full screen, and we're going to have Unity open, we're going to have our Tetris project loaded, and I will be in the corner of your screen, okay? So let's do that. Also, I'm going to try to, I know I had a lot of people say that the code examples are just too small. And okay, I get that. The screen really is tiny because it's a full screen. And I'm showing you the entire coding window rather than just the lines of code that I'm typing. So I'm going to try to make that a little different. I know there's a couple of places where I watch videos where they zoom in on the code that they type. So I'm going to find an easy way, hopefully, to do that and help you guys out. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey everyone, it's Chris. Welcome back to another Tetris tutorial. I know I said I was completely finished with that series, but you guys had, there was one of you that requested a high score tutorial, so we're going to do that one today. There are others, I think, and I'll look into those as well, but this is the one we're going to get started with, okay? And it's actually not so difficult. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's see here. So we've got our Tetris project loaded up, okay? And we've already got these three scenes here. We've got a game menu, a game over, and a level. The level, of course, is our game. The game menu is the menu that we created here, okay? And we created that so that we could pick a level to start from. And I think that maybe this right here would be actually a good place to show those high scores, right? When you first start the game, you want to see what the heck you're up against, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add some placeholders for high scores, okay? And you guys can put these wherever you want. I'm just going to put them here on the side. Yeah, that'll probably be the best. And what we'll do is we'll just start with one high score to begin with, okay? So the highest score, the highest possible score. You are the best Tetris player ever. You get this score, okay? So we're going to need to create a UI element, okay? And we're going to use a text element. And you know what? Since we've already got all these created, instead of just creating a new one and setting the font and all that, let's go ahead and select the one we just made and just delete that out. And we're just going to copy the level text, okay? So we'll just duplicate that and select our transform tool and move that over. And then we'll just put it right here, and then we'll set the text to high score. Okay. And then directly below that, we'll copy the level text. Okay, we'll duplicate that. I'll put that over here. right? And we will rename this, and we're going to call this high score text, just so we don't get confused. Yep. All right. So there's our placeholder. Okay. So now, if you guys will remember, the way that we made any of this functional is that we have this game menu script. Okay, and it's called game menu. So let's have a look at that script. All right, so what have we got here? We've got play game, which is a method that'll start our game, and then we've got a changed value, which actually changes the value of our slider text to display the level that we're going to start at, and then we've got a basically a method that'll take us back to our game menu, and this is probably called from the game over scene if I remember correctly. So what we're going to do is we are going to in our start method first, okay, we're going to add and by the way that we're going to do this is we're going to use something called PlayerPrefs that is part of Unity. And PlayerPrefs is a way to store little amounts of data, such as text and things like that, in a local file that is basically saved as a data file to your hard drive that'll store your game's data. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we're going to use PlayerPrefs and PlayerPrefs.load. So what we're going to do is we're going to use PlayerPrefs, okay, and we're going to create a variable. No, actually, let's not even do that. Let's just do this here. Let's go level. It's not level text. We actually have to first create a variable. Okay, so public text, and we're going to make this public because we need to assign, okay, the game object that we created, the what do we call it? The level, no, we called it, what the heck did we call that thing? We called it high score text, okay? We're going to set the high score text equal to a variable in here. And the way we need to do that is we need to create a public variable to hold that game object, okay? A reference to that game object. So what we're going to do is high score text, what we're going to call it. And in here, we're just going to go ahead and say high score text dot text equals PlayerPrefs get, and we're going to get an integer because that's how we're going to save our score, and we're going to get a key, okay, and the key is basically whatever we want it to be, okay. So if we want to assign a high score, we would probably best served to call that actually high score, okay, so that it'll be easy to reference back when we are wanting to get that information. So if there isn't a value stored in high score, then it's just going to return 0, and it's going to make our text 0, which is fine. We're okay with that. So there's not really a whole lot of error checking we need to do. In some cases, you'll want to check to see if the variable that you're getting, whether it's empty or not empty, because that can have an effect on your code at some point. But with an integer, you're going to be fine, and with what we're doing anyways. So basically, we're just going to set high score text.text equal to whatever value is stored in the high score key in PlayerPrefs. Okay, so we'll save that, and we're going to go ahead and go back to Unity. In our game menu script, you can see that we'll now have nothing. We have an error. Oh, okay, because of course we're trying to store an integer in a text, which is not right because text is a string type and this is an int type. So what we need to do here is go dot to string, okay, and that will convert our text into a string. That will convert our int into a string, and so the compiler should have nothing to complain about now. Come on, error, go away. All right, now we're gone. Now we've got our high score text variable here that we can assign our high score text game object to. Okay, so now when we press the play button, our high score should be 0. Okay, so now just as a test, let me show you guys what happens if we go in go back to our script here, and let's just, for the heck of it, let's set that high score value to something. So PlayerPrefs dot get in, or sorry, no, we're not going to get anything. We're going to set something. So we can set an integer, we can set a float, or we can set a string. In this case, we're going to set an integer. And here, when we go into the method of that, we're actually asked for a key and a value. Okay, so that key again is going to be high score because that's what we decided to make it. And then what value do we want to assign to our high score? So right now, let's just set it at 20,000. Oh, no commas. Sorry, this is an integer. So 20,000. So now we're going to set the integer to 20,000 to the high score key. So then the next time we get our high score key, we are going to set that text equal to whatever the value is for this key. All right, so we'll save that, and then we're going to press play, and now our high score equals 20,000. So you're going to say, oh, well, you know, what's the big deal? You're setting it and you're getting it. So, you know, you can do that with pretty much anything. Well, let me show you that this is going to work now, whether or not we're setting the integer to 20,000. So now I've commented this out. There's nothing setting the high score to 20,000 anymore. Okay, so now we're just going to get whatever is in this high score key. Okay, so we're going to save that, jump back over, press play. All right, so now our high score is still 20,000. And it's going to be 20,000 because that's what we've got stored on the hard drive in that data file. So now, let's suppose that we try to change the key. So this is a key that doesn't exist, right? So this key should just return 0. So if we save that, go back in, now our high score is 0 because there's nothing set for that key, okay? So now let's change the key back to high score, press play, and now it shows us the value that is actually assigned to that key, which is cool, right? So now we can save our scores and we can recall them. So how do we do that, right? So how do we save the score? Well, do we want to save the score always, or do we only want to save the score when it's higher than the current high score? That would be preferable, right? Because if you're always saving the score, then you'll never get a high score. So for instance, if your highest score is 50,000, and then the next time you play the game, you get a score of 20 and then a score of 30, and you save it every single time, then your high score will just be 30, and then 50, and then 100, and then 200. So you don't want to do that. You want to save the high score only when when your current score is higher than your highest score ever, right? So if your highest score ever is 20,000, you're going to have a method that's going to constantly check, hey, is my score higher than my last current high score, which is 20,000? Is it? Is it? Is it? Is it? Until it is, we're not going to save a new high score. But once it is, then we will save that new high score. Okay? We're going to save that new high score, and that's going to be that. And then it's going to always be greater than that, right? So as it continues, it's going to continue to check. Oh, is it still greater? Is it still greater? Is it still greater? And it's going to overwrite and overwrite and overwrite until, of course, you're game over. Okay, so let's go ahead and implement that. And we're going to go ahead and open up our, let's see here, scenes. Nope, sorry, we need to go into scripts. And we're going to go into game, right? Because that is where our scoring happens. And the scoring happens where we update our score, which we have a method for. All right. So here we go. So we've got cleared one line, current score plus equals. Okay. So here's what we'll do is we'll create a new method. We'll call this method, let's call it check and set, or you know what? Let's just keep it simple. Update high score. All right. So rather than checking the score every single time, what we could do is when the game starts, we could create a variable. Okay, we'll call it int starting high score. Okay, so when the game starts, we're going to get the current high score. So we're going to say starting high score is equal to PlayerPrefs dot get int, and we're going to get high score. Okay, and at that point we've got our starting high score. Right, so we don't constantly have to call this PlayerPrefs get int method to try and get the value that's stored in the high score. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to check that variable. So if current score is greater than starting high score, then we're going to update. So PlayerPrefs dot set int. And we're going to set it to the value of current score. Okay. Oops, that's not going to work. We need the key. So high score, and then we're going to set it to the value of current score. Okay. So if current score is greater than starting high score, all right, so starting high score, let's say starting high score is 20,000, and all of a sudden you've now reached 20,002, right? So then obviously your score is greater, and then it's like, okay, well, now we got to set a new high score because the player just got a higher score than the starting high score, and that's fine. And the starting high score will always remain at 20,000 from this point on. It's not going to increment along with, I mean, we could, you know, easily set, but we don't really need to, because while this game is still going on, the player isn't suddenly going to get out and come back in without updating the starting high score, and I mean, something crazy like that's not going to happen. So I mean, we could still do it if we wanted to, but we don't need to actually do that. So right now, as it is, this is actually going to work just fine. Okay, not a problem. What we might want to do though at this point is maybe we want to let the player know, hey, you just like crushed the high score, right? Do we want to do that? We can. And what's the best way to do that? We could create something that like flashes on the screen. So like, hey, you did it, or you know, whatever. And that's really up to you guys. I don't really have, you know, I don't think I have to show you how to do that. But here, let's go ahead and give it a try. First, before we do anything else, let's reset our high score to 0. Okay. All right. So now our high score is 0, which is good. That's where it should be. All right. So now what we'll do is we will go into here and just get rid of this whole line, because that's not going to be needed anymore. All right, so now we're going to play. And we'll start off at level 0. All right, so now we've already got a score, right? So 140, 220. Oh, crap, you know what we're not doing? I always like think of these things like afterwards. So we've got this cool little method that updates our high score, but yeah, it never gets called. So we want to call that, right? So we will call it whenever we update the score. We update the score every frame, so we don't really need to do it that way. But well, yeah, we kind of do. We want to update our score. Actually, we have in the Tetramino class, I think there is a scoring system that happens in here. Yep. Game.current score plus equals individual score. So we're going to want to call from here. So we're going to do game dot update high score. Oops. We're going to use find object of type. And we're going to pass in our game class. And then we're going to call our update high score method from there. Okay, so every time we update our score here, we're going to update our high score. Okay. Yeah, because here we're just setting the current score. Alright. So we're going to copy that line because we're lazy. And then we're going to paste it into I'll just put it here, okay? Because we also get scores if we clear any lines. Now we don't have to put it in every single one of these, because if we know that number of rows this turn is greater than 0, then we have at least cleared one line. So we know that we can update our high score, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and press play here. Okay, so play. Alright, so I'm just going to test this out, so I'm just going to kill it really quick. Alright, so we're at 700, 780, 870. 970. That's interesting. Let's do that again. Alright, so our score is 970. Well, this is really not cool. So 1900. And apparently, apparently our score is being added to. Our score is being added to, and Unity's complaining about level text.text because we're using this same game menu class in our game over scene, and there is no level text.text. So it's trying to set that. So, I mean, we really don't care about this. Is not going to cause any major problems. But we do need to have a look at our score, because when we get to our game over, which is from the game, so let's do game over. So here all we're doing is saying, oh, it's game over, so we're just going to load the game over level. Well, that's great, but we have some things that we need to reset at this point. Like, we need to reset our current score. Our current score needs to go back down to 0. Our HUD score, level, lines, all that stuff needs to be reset to 0. And honestly, what we could do is we could just start it here, okay? We could do current score 0. HUD score text equals 0. HUD level we'll just do this. HUD level dot text equals current level to string, and then HUD lines dot text equals 0. Okay. So we're initializing these in the beginning. That way, whenever we come back from a game over, they'll all be reset to their initial values, which is where they should be. So let's go ahead and make sure that that actually works. Alright, so our high score is 2000, so it kept that. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what happens. So at 420, 500, and our score, our high score did not change because we didn't surpass 2000, and our score level and lines are still reset like they should be. So now let's try to go above 2000. Okay, so now we're at 2110. Sorry, let's go ahead and end this. Okay, 2720 is our high score now. And the reason that what we're looking at here is the high score is more than what it was at the end of the game, because the score at the end of the game, when we're at a game over, isn't being updated anymore to the latest score from the last piece that fell. So that's why that's not reflecting. But that's, I mean, you can tell everything is working. So now even if we exit the game and we play it again, it'll tell us our highest score was 2720. Okay? So what we can do is we can add some more scores to that. So let's go ahead and add 2 more. Okay, so what we're going to do is here, we're just going to duplicate that, bring it down, and duplicate this and bring that down. Okay, and then we'll change this to high scores. Alright, so now if we look at it, we've got 2720 and then 0 and then 0. Alright, so we'll call this high score text 2 and high score text 3. Alright, so now we'll go into our game menu script and we're going to add 2 more variables. Public text high score text 2 and public text high score text 3. Alright, so then what we'll do is we'll set high score text 2 dot text equal to PlayerPrefs get int high score 2, and let's convert it to a string, and high score text 3 dot text and PlayerPrefs get int high score 3 dot to string. Okay, and then in our game class where we update our score, before we do that, so we don't forget, let's go ahead and assign these game objects to those new variables. So high score text 2 and high score text 3. Okay, let's make sure everything's still working. Let's press the play button. Okay, there's zeros just like they should be. Alright, so now we go into our game script, and here where we're updating our high score. Now, what we need to check is if current score is greater than, so we'll start with if current score is greater than starting, oh wait, you know what, we need to actually do this. Starting private and starting high score 2. Private and starting high score 3. Okay. And then we also need to set them. So, here. Starting high score 2 equals PlayerPrefs get int high score 2 and starting high score 3 equals PlayerPrefs get int and high score 3. All right. So what we could do is we could say, hey, if the current score is greater than starting high score 2, or if the current score is greater than starting high score 3, or if the current score is greater than starting score. Actually, we would do that backwards. But anyways, what would happen here is we wouldn't know which one was bigger, and we wouldn't know which one to set. Obviously, there's another way to do this, and one way is to just check. All right, so is my current score bigger than the third highest score? If it is, then oh yeah, we want to update that. And then once it's, and then keep updating it until it gets higher than the second highest score, and we want to keep updating it, and then higher than the highest high score, and keep updating it. The problem with that is we don't want to update those lower scores if they're still playing, right? We only want to update those lower scores if the game is over and they haven't reached a score higher than the higher score. So to do that, we actually want to check. All right, so we don't want to update the high score at this particular point in time. Okay, we want to only update the high score if the player dies, right? So let's go in here and we're going to delete this, okay, so that we're not constantly updating the high score anymore. Then we're also going to go into our game class and go here, and we're going to get rid of this, okay, because we're not going to call update high score from there anymore. We are going to call update high score from our, where is it? Game over. All right. So right before we call game over, we want to do update high score. Okay. So, and there, in this update high score, what we're going to do is we're going to say if the current score, all right, let's just get rid of this. If the current score is greater than the starting high score 3, which is the lowest score, right? The lowest of the high scores that you can score to get onto the leaderboards, right? So we've got if current score is greater than starting score 3, all right, then we want to set high score 3 equal to current score. But only, okay, we only want to do this if it's not also higher than starting score 2 and starting score, okay? So another way to do this, instead of writing all these if statements, we start with the highest score, right? The very highest. So if we go with if current score is greater than starting high score, which is the highest score on the leaderboard, right? If that's true, then we want to say, okay, PlayerPrefs set int high score equal to current score. Okay? So we don't want to do another if statement that says if current score starting is greater than starting high score 2, because then it'll just go ahead and overwrite high score 2 as well. And then what it'll do is it'll overwrite that and 3, and then all of them will be the same. So we don't want to do that. So we want to say else, okay, if the current score is not greater than the starting high score, then we'll see, actually we'll do else if the current score is greater than starting high score 2, okay? So now we're checking, hey, you know, our score isn't higher than the highest score, but is it higher than the second highest score? And if it is, then we say PlayerPrefs set int high score 2 to current score. But if it isn't, else if, right? We check, okay, is the current score greater than the third place high score? Okay. And if it is, then we do PlayerPrefs set int high score 3 current score. Otherwise, we don't do anything to the high scores. We leave them be as they are, right? So the only time the high scores get changed is first, if they're greater, if the current score is greater than the actual highest score, or if the current score is greater than the second highest score, or if the current score is greater than the third highest score. All right. So now let's go ahead and play the game and see what that looks like. All right. So we know that the highest score is 2,720. And second place and third place right now are at 0. So if we play and we get anything higher than 0, the highest score that it should put us at is in second place, because second place is, you know, technically higher than the 0 that we would have gotten third place had we checked to see if that was also, but that wasn't the case. We knew right away we were higher than second place because second place was 0 before we checked if third place was 0. So let's go ahead and play. All right. So start out, we got 80, 170, 350, 440. Okay. So now our score is 520. Okay, 520 in second place. So now, if we get anything higher than 0, it'll be put in third place. Okay, so if we press play, all we gotta do is get something higher than 0, so 70. This will automatically put us in third place already. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we got 490. That put us in third place. So now what we need to do is we need to check and see if we're going to check to see if we can get a high score that's higher than 520 but less than 2,720. So because we want to check to see if we can beat the second place high score, right? So we need at least, you know, 530 or 525 or whatever. So anything higher than 520 should put us here and knock that score down. Okay. Interesting. We want to knock that score down. Okay, so here's another thing. Do we want to knock that score down and take 490 off the list? Because technically 520 is higher than 490. If we get a 550, we can't just erase the 520 and leave the 490. 490 is gone now because 490 is no longer a high score. So we also need to check and make sure that the scores are being, you know, moved down as the new ones are being upgraded. So let's go ahead and write the code for that. So we'll go into game, and then here where we're updating high scores, so we're checking, okay, if we're updating our highest score, all right, that means that the high score that was there before, right, so we'll call it starting high score, all right, so we're going to have to set our starting, we're going to have to set PlayerPrefs. We're going to have to do set int high score 3 equal to the value of starting high score 2. Okay? And then we're going to have to set high score 2 to be the value of starting high score. And then finally, we'll update our high score with the current score. See how we just moved all those down? The third one, the last one got erased. The second one got updated from the last one got erased, and the third one got updated with the value of the second one. The second one then got updated with the value of the first one, and the first one got erased with the value that is currently at. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing with this one here, right? So we're higher than high score 2. We're obviously not higher than high score 1. So what we need to do is we need to move this one down to high score 3. Okay, so we'll do PlayerPrefs, set int, high score 3, and we're going to set that equal to starting score 2. Okay. And then we're going to set our high score 2 equal to our current score. We don't have to do anything here with high score 3 because it's already at the bottom of the list. Okay. So let's have a look and see. Let's test this. Okay. So what's going to happen here is we're going to get a higher score, higher than 520. So let's call it 540, 550, whatever we get. It's got to be higher than 520. That should then move 520 into the 490 spot and put our new high score here. All right, so let's try that out. Actually, let's stop and play and press play. So higher than 520 is what we're looking for. Shouldn't be too hard. All right, so we're already higher than 520. So we're at 800, 890. All right, so 520 should go down. Our new score should be about 520. There we go. So that 4, whatever it was, got bumped off the list altogether, and we've got 980 as our new second place score with 520 now in a third place. And that is how high scores are supposed to work, which is perfect. It's working exactly like it should be. So, you can make that look a little nicer. Let's add some numbers here, right? So we'll do, then we'll just duplicate that, and we'll make the width a little smaller. Let's go with like 40 or 80. Yeah, let's go with 80, and we'll move it here. We'll go first. Okay. Duplicate. And duplicate, and we'll have second, and third. All right, so maybe we need to make these a little bigger. Let's go with 100. And I also want to left align these. And let's make the font sizes a little smaller. Let's go with like 40. Okay, so now we just need to organize these a little better. And anyways, I mean, this is just aesthetics that I'm working on right now. I wouldn't even call it aesthetics. It's ugly. It could be a lot better. So now we've got first, second, third. better high scores, and that's basically it. And that's high scores is just one thing that you can store as data. You can score all kinds. You can store all kinds of stuff in PlayerPrefs. You saw you could store strings and integers and floats, and anything really. You can store points and what the player has, for instance, like how many of something. Like if you have a player with a gun and he's collected bullets and you want to like store those and have them also like persist across like scene changes, you can save all that stuff in PlayerPrefs, and it's always saved for you right there, right? Then you could take that a step further and implement like iCloud saving and all kinds of other stuff. But this is basically it. Yeah. So I'm gonna end the tutorial here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys like my new little camera at the bottom. So now you can actually kind of see my face as I'm talking to you. I think maybe, I don't know, that'll help. I don't know how it'll help. Probably won't help, but I'm there, an actual person, not just a voice in the background. So hope you guys like that. If not, let me know and I'll go away. Nope, I won't. I will be here forever. Okay, so I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to subscribe down below and like my videos, okay? They're awesome. I'll see you guys soon.